This is the third video of the Unit 8 test review. If you've been watching the first two videos, I just want to let you know that I made a little error on number 3. In the first video there, I forgot to distribute the 6. That should have been 6x plus 30. That would make that final answer negative 3x plus 39. Sorry about that. In the second video, believe it or not, I made the exact same mistake on number, let's see, which number was that? Number, number 22 here. You'll notice that I forgot to distribute the 6 again. It should have been 6x plus 18, which will change the answer to negative 40 over 5, which equals negative 8. Sorry about that. I made a little comment in on the YouTube videos, so if you go back to those videos, you'll see those things have been changed. But I'm not going to re-record those videos. Sorry. All right, back to the solving. We're on number 24 here, and we're trying to solve for x. On this one, you might be inclined to cross-multiply, but that's not actually the best way to solve this. Before we do anything else, let's list the restricted values, what x cannot be. And actually, there's only one restricted value here, and it's negative 5. And if you're wondering why there's only one, remember, you have to say exactly this whole denominator, you set that equal to 0. So if you set 4x plus 20 equal to 0, and solved, you get x equals negative 5. So it's whatever you plug into x here that turns the denominator into 0. So in both cases, it's negative 5. Now that's actually going to inform what I do next. I'm going to try and make this denominator look like this denominator. And the way I'm going to do that is multiply the top and the bottom of the fraction by 4. And that's going to make this 4x over 4x plus 20 equals x minus 3 over 4x plus 20. And the reason I did that is since the denominators are the same, if I just multiply by that common denominator on both sides, 4x plus 20, remember in algebra, whatever you do on one side, you must do to the other side. Hopefully you see that what's going to happen here is these things are just going to cancel out, leaving us with 4x equals x minus 3. And if you subtract x, you've got 3x equals negative 3. And then, of course, x equals negative 1, which is the answer. It's not a restricted value. So that would be the easiest way to solve that one. However, on the next one, number 25, we are going to need to cross multiply. But before I do, I'm going to list my restricted values, which are twofold. X cannot equal positive 4 and positive 9. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and cross multiply these. And it's going to give me x plus 4 times x minus 9 equals x minus 4 times x plus 3. We're going to FOIL this out to get x squared minus 5x minus 36 equals x squared minus x minus 12. Here we want to combine like terms. I'm going to subtract x squared from both sides, but when I do that, it simply cancels out the x squareds. All right? Well, then I'm going to add x to both sides and add 36 to both sides to get negative 4x equals negative 12 plus 36 is 24. When you divide both sides by negative 4, you end up with x equals negative 24 over 4, which is just 6. Negative 6. It's not a restricted value, so it's the answer. On number 26, another solving equation. start the same way. List those restricted values. In this case, we're talking about D, which cannot equal two things. We don't want it to equal 0 or -2. A little box around that. And then we're going to cross multiply these guys right here. So I'm going to end up with 7D equals 4D plus 8. And when you subtract 4D from both sides, you get 3D equals 8. Divide both sides by 3. You've got D equals 8 over 3, which is not a restricted value. So it's the answer right there. Number 27 has two restricted values, because when you factor this thing, you've got yourself C minus 9 times C minus 5. So the two restricted values, what D cannot equal, or sorry, C, we're going to say C cannot equal positive 9 or positive 5. Now, this one is, it may seem like it's tough, but it's actually really simple if you multiply all three terms by this common denominator of C minus 9 times C minus 5. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to multiply all three terms by C minus 9 times C minus 5. On the first one, the C minus 9 and C minus 5 cancel out, leaving me with just -4. On the second term, only the C minus 9s are going to cancel out. And that's going to leave me with C times C minus 5. And on the third term, the C minus 5s cancel out, leaving me with just C minus 9. At this point, we're going to want to distribute what we've got here. And I'm going to have a quadratic because C times C is C squared. So I'm going to move that 4 over there by adding. So I'm going to go ahead and make this a 0 so I can solve this quadratic. C squared minus 5C plus C minus 9 plus 4. And so 0 equals C squared. Negative 5C plus C is negative 4C. And negative 9 plus 4 is negative 5. This looks like something I can factor. And when I do factor that, I think this thing factors at C minus 5 and C plus 1. So therefore C equals positive 5 and negative 1. But wait, look at those restricted values. C cannot equal 5. So it ain't that one. C equals negative 1 is the only answer, since the other solution was a restricted value. And that's it for the solving problems. The rest of these are all going to be word problems. So let's jump into some of these here. Alex goes on a riverboat tour while on vacation. The maximum speed of the boat in still water is 13 miles per hour. The boat travels 24 miles downstream in the same amount of times it takes the boat to travel 15 miles against the current. What is the rate of the current? Okay. So what we want to do is we want to make a little bar, or sorry, a little table here. And I like to make a table that looks like this. And inside the table, I like to write the equation rate times time equals distance. And so we've got downstream and upstream. So I'm going to do upstream up here, which is against the current, and downstream here, which is with the current. And the boat travels 24 miles downstream in the same amount of time it takes the boat to travel 15 miles upstream. And it says the maximum speed of the boat in still water is 13 miles per hour. So let's assume that it's going the maximum speed of 13. Now when it's going upstream, it's having to fight the rate of the current. So let's just say that x is the rate of the current of the water. If that's the case, when we're going upstream, then that 13 is going to be subtracted by x, because it's going to get slowed down by the water. When you're going downstream, we're going to add the x, because the rate of the current is going to increase the speed of the boat. So here, to solve this thing, to figure out x, we need to remember that, well, if rate times time equals distance, then to get that t by itself, you divide both sides by r, and you get time equals distance divided by rate. And so here, I'm just going to simply do 15 over 13 minus x, and then 24 over 13 plus x. And the key word here is in the same amount of time, which means these two times are equal. So I'm going to go ahead and set them equal to each other. 15 over 13 minus x equals 24 over 13 plus x. And so the question is, what are my restricted values? I'm going to go ahead and write those over here. What can x not equal? Well, it sure can't equal 13 or negative 13. It wouldn't make much sense for it to be going negative 13 miles per hour anyway. So here, what we're going to do is probably cross multiply is the easiest way here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And that's going to give me 24 times 13 minus x equals 15 times 13 plus x. And 24 times 13 is 312 minus 24x, and 15 times 13 is 195 plus 15x. I'm going to add the 24 to both sides and subtract the 195, so 312 minus 195 is 117, and 15 plus 24 is 39x. Last step here is divide both sides by 39. 117 divided by 39. Well, hey, that's pretty. X equals 3, which is the rate of the current. So I guess we would just write that as miles per hour. And you probably want to write that as a sentence. You'd say the rate of the current is 3 miles per hour. That'd be the right way. And since that's not a restricted value, I put a little check mark on that. Bam, we're done. Moving on to number 29.